Okay guys, welcome back. So starting off where we left off last time around, I will get to renaming this after I finish. I'm going to add a couple of things to my external walls and my internal walls, starting with the ring beam, or there's a beam in the corner here on the internal leaf. So you'll see it in the section if you click section here. You see that beam there, you would have done this with FICRA. That's a 215 high by 215 wide beam on the internal leaf, just above the 215 wall. Same goes on and around the stair core, and then up along the side here, which you'll see in the plans. So those beams have to be measured. What we're going to try and do is we're going to try and measure it in such a way that we measure the length, the volume, the weight of steel, of reinforcement in that beam, and the formwork. Now the formwork, just make a note, if it's a 215 by 215 in situ concrete beam, there'll be formwork on one side, this side, which is the height, the other side, which is the height, and the bottom, which is the width. There will not be formwork on the top, because that's where we're pouring in our concrete. So you would have done this with FICRA. So let's start with the external walls, and in fact we can click on the external walls, click on the dimensions tab, click add. Now if I'm on the external walls, that will come up there. I'm not going to designate whether it's on the first floor or the ground floor, so we can just leave that blank, 21 external walls, and then just put in 215 times 215 millimeters in situ concrete beam. Okay, and it's in the external walls. I'm going to measure it as a length, and my width is 0.215 and my height is 0.215. So happy enough with that. The reason it's not 215 is because it's per meter. You can see the little M there. So I've got to convert the 215 millimeters to meters. The weight UOM will be measured, or I want tons, not kg. Now I could take it in as kg and price it accordingly, but reinforcement steel is usually measured in tons, so let's leave it as tons. Happy enough with that. I'm going to default display it as a volume, but make a note that I am measuring it as a length. Custom quantities, the next tab, I am going to add a custom quantity, and I have my volume, I'll have my weight, I want to add formwork. Now I could do this in the capital F formwork, in the workbook, by taking the length times the 3 sides, but why not put it in here as an automated measurement, meter squared drop down, so formwork meter squared. Cross now into my measure dimensions, and there's a couple of different items I need to measure here. My volume is in there as the area times the height, or it'll be the area, of course, will be the length times the width. So obviously the volume is the length times the width times the height. So that's fine. I am going to measure a length, so that'll populate that. And then my weight will be obviously my length. If I double click that, times, actually my weight won't be my length. My weight will be my volume times 250. I'm guessing that it's 250 kg per meter cubed concrete reinforcement. So what that means is every 1 meter cubed of concrete, I'm applying 250 kilograms of reinforcement. I don't have a rebar schedule at this stage, so this is just a guesstimate. It might be different than what you did with FICRA, but this is what we're going to use for the moment. I can change it if I go back to FICRA's Excel files and see that it's completely different. But for the moment, let's use that rule of thumb for the beam. Volume times 250. And why am I multiplying by 0.001? Well, that's my reinforcement conversion from kg to tons. I can divide it by 1,000 or multiply it by 0.001. So I'm happy enough with that. Close. So that's that formula, which will take the volume times 250 by 0.001. Now I could have typed that in rather than using these 3 dots, but it's handy to use the dots. Formwork will be the length, which I calculate, times, well, I could say times 3, because you've got 3 sides, times 0.215. Or instead of 215, actually, you could put the width. So we've got length times 3 times 215. Okay, or width, which is 215. So either one are. I might put in 215 because they're different widths and heights. It's not width as such, it's the width and the height. So the 3 is basically the 3 sides, and what is the height or width of those 3 sides? It's 215, because it's a 215 by 215 in situ concrete beam. So the length will be the total length multiplied by 3, multiplied by 205, will give me an area. I'm going to close that, and I should be happy enough with that. Click insert. So in that goes. Now I'm going to have the same in internal walls, so let's try and rather than do it all again, let's try and copy that dimension. Right click. Is there a copy dimension here? I haven't done it in a while. Copy dimension. This time I'm going to drop it down into my internal walls. Is my internal walls there? I might have to just type it in. 22 internal walls. Just get rid of that. Ooh. Oh, it won't let me delete it. It's fine. Leave it in first floor. It's okay. It doesn't really matter. I can change it. I might put a 2 there instead of a copy, and just make sure the name is correct. So I've just basically copied that dimension with all its properties. It's going to go in the first floor, but for some reason it won't let me delete that. Click OK, and then I can double click into it and I can delete the first floor because it doesn't back to the dash, and everything else is okay. I could even really change the color when I go back into it and click update. So there I've got two exact same, I suppose, or not objects, but measurements. By copying it, I didn't have to do the whole thing again with the formwork and the weight and width and the height, etc. It'll have all those properties in there because I've copied it. So let's go and measure these concrete beams, starting with the ground floor. Measure it as point mode, dimensions. It starts right here because it starts on the 215 wall. And where does the 215 wall start? It starts here in this corner. So I believe it's from there to, I'd say there. Now the reason I'm not bringing that all the way across is because I'm going to start right here. And if I bring it all the way across and then start again right here, I'm double measuring that corner. Remember, because I'm measuring a line doesn't mean that line is on the edge. That line obviously represents 215 millimeters, so it's bringing it right to there. So this essentially, I could bring it through the middle, but I'm measuring edge to edge, so that's okay. But it does represent the thickness or width of that 215, so I've got to be careful not to over measure things by double measuring corners. This kind of comes with a bit of practice, and you can see there I've measured the other length. Now I've measured through window opes, etc. In fact, that is the case because it's above those windows. And you'll notice I started on that edge. So what do I've got there? 1 meter cubed, but you'll see that my volume is 0.62. I've got a formwork of 8.61. If I hover over, I've got a weight of 0.15 tons. So happy enough with that. Onto the in situ concrete beam. What's going on here? Well, I'm going to start right here at the corner. Why? Because I've measured across there as the external one. I'm going to come down to the edge. That's fine. I'm going to click from there to there, stop there because I started my external one down here, and then moving on to here, I can go right the way to the top. Ooh, zoom in a bit more, and that will cover me up to there, and then start there and end there. So that should be enough there. Hover over that. I've got a volume of 0.9, a weight of 0.23, a formwork of a little bit more than I had on the previous. Okay, so I'm happy enough with that. That will give me all the dimensions I need to measure that in situ concrete beam in the BOQ. So realistically I only measured the length, but because I got all those kind of, I suppose, attributes in terms of what I put in for width and height, formwork and reinforcement in terms of weight, they're measuring them all as secondary quantities, even though it's only shown as a volume. So you should be getting well used to that by now. Cupid does something similar in relation to shapes, and I'm happy enough. The other thing I want to add is the forming cavities. So where are they? Okay, so when I measured external walls, I measured individual external leaves, individual internal leaves. I didn't measure this forming cavities, which includes the insulation, up through that entire, I suppose, perimeter of my external wall. So in the ground floor, there's my cavity. And through the center line of that cavity, in terms of an area, total area around the building, I've got forming cavities of 100 mil. So let's put it in. Click on external walls, add a dimension group into the external walls. You can leave it just as external walls because it's going to run the gamut in terms of ground floor and first floor up through both. And I can just put in forming cavities. Now Now I can put in full description, be it wall ties, insulation, etc. But I just need to represent exactly what that is, or not exactly what it is, so I know what I need to use in my workbook. I'm going to measure it as a length, and I'm going to default it as a wall area. Now, if I measure it as a length and want to default display it as a wall area, I need a default height. So what's the total height of my building? Well, I know it's 7.2, so I'm going to put that in, and I might use a different color, dark blue, click insert. So 7.2, I would have checked this before I measured it. That's the height of this dimension, that dimension, those 4 dimensions there. Or you can click the little drawings ruler, little scale rulery thing here, click, and it's down to my ground floor because anything below that is in the substructure. 7.2, bang on. Okay, so I'm happy enough with that. So I need to go ahead and measure it. Let's click back on my ground floor and make sure I'm on the quant. I am. I measure all these things usually in point mode. This time around, I'm going to turn off my geometry. So the geometry basically wants to snap onto a point or a line. I'm going to turn it off, and basically I can click on wherever I want. I'm going to click on the first corner or on the middle of the first corner. I'm going to click it. Now after I've clicked it, I'm going to hold down control. This is important. Hold down control on my keyboard and keep holding it. And then go to my next corner. Okay, there it is. There's my next corner. And then go to my next corner, what I think is the middle. Click. And then up to my second last one. And then across to click and release. Oh, that's jumped. Push back. There we go. So total length is, if I hover over it, 57.76. Total wall area, because it's a continuous line. Now I could have measured them all as separate lines, as in 4 separate lines. Click, click. Move on to the next one. Click, 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 click. But I measured it as a continuous line by holding down that control as I click around. And then obviously click on the last one, release the control, and that's a continuous line. To see your continuous line, click your dimensions, there it is. If you measure them as 4 lines, you have 4 individual measurements there. So the total area of my forming cavities is 416. So that is those few extra things in external walls and internal walls. So my internal beams, both in internal walls and external walls, and forming cavities, which is my insulation and wall ties. So I'm going to move on now to 32 external wall completions. Okay, looking at the windows, let's take a look at them at the on both the plans and elevations. So there they are there, or there at least is the door, 1.8 wide. That's a steel door. There's also a steel door here to the warehouse, and I believe there's also a steel door in that elevation into the warehouse. This is a glazed door, double door, here into the reception area. And then we got some windows. Now I believe that all the glazed windows and doors are UPVC. And obviously, as I said there, the steel doors, double steel doors, are steel doors. So let's add that. Looking at them, actually before we add them, looking at them at the elevations, we can see that the heights are on there. Now just bear in mind that the height is from the bottom of the sill, so it would be the height of an opening. Whereas when we're measuring the windows, I suppose we need the actual height of the window. So what would be 1650 in terms of height is actually 1575, because we're taking away the 75 millimeter sill there. So let's take a quick look at that, I suppose. Drawings, little measurement rule. Our measurement ruler. If I just click the top and click the bottom, I can see that is 1.575. So from the heights there, which is 1650 on the first floor, and 1575, I'm taking away that 75 millimeters. All the widths are okay because they're from edge to edge, and I need to put in dimensions for each one of these doors and windows. So let's go ahead and do that. Maybe leaving that elevation open. Click dimensions. You've done this so many times. Click add dimension group. It's not standard. Let's drop that down into, well, I have to create a new one, don't I? Into 32. External wall completions. I'm going to do a little /, which is the dash to the left of the shift key or to the right of the shift key on the left hand side of the keyboard, not the right hand side. So external wall completions, I believe that's a / and then I'm going to put in UPVC glazed windows. There we go. And my first one is 1385 millimeters by 1500. Those are the ones on the bottom floor. If you want to check the dimensions, go ahead, but I'm happy enough with that. I'm going to measure this as a count. Default display as count is fine. Default width, well, let's put in the widths here. Now I could do this in the workbook, I don't necessarily need to do it here, but let's put it in here. So that 1.385 times a height of 1.5, and remember it's in meters, so I do need to change them from millimeters to meters when I'm putting them in here. 1.385, 1.5, is that what we got here? It is. And then I suppose the width times the height will give me a wall area. Which will be utilized as the area of the windows when I'm deducting them out of the wall areas. So that will be handy, so it's worth putting that in there to use quite quickly, even though I'm registering them as counts. Leave it as lime green, that's fine. Click insert, that's that one. Click another one, and add another window of a certain size. Let's add 1385 by 1575, and these are the ones that are on the first floor. That's all fine there. Count, and then down here I've got the same width, 1.385, but I've got a different height, 1.575. Okay. Color, let's put in a different color here. Doesn't really matter if you do or don't, but just make sure everything's okay. There it is. Click insert. I believe I've got a third window type. I'm measuring them per size of the window, and that's usually what you do in a bill of quantities. It's a composite item per size numerated. So why not just keep that process here? 1800 multiplied by 1575 millimeters. That's the height. So width times height, 32. Count. Give it a different color. Doesn't really matter. Dark blue in this case. 1.8 in terms of the width. Where am I getting the 1.8? Obviously it's from there. And then the 1.75 is my height. 1.575. That goes in there. I'm happy enough with that. So that's my third window. The other thing I want to measure here is doors. In fact, before I measure doors, actually I can go ahead and measure doors here. Also UPVC, but this time I'm going to put in doors at the end to give a separate subgroup, and then put in the height of that one door, and I believe it's 1800 multiplied by 2260 high. How do I know that? Well, I can go back and look at the elevations if need be, but I remember count, and then again put in the 1.8, and then put in the 2.26. Okay, and again, if I want to change my color, that's fine. In this case, orange. 2.26, 1.8. I always double check. Click insert. I should get a separate subgroup there, glazed doors, as a number. And then my last item is the steel doors. So let's go ahead and do that. Add dimension group. Just change the UPVC. What was the last measurement there? To steel doors. And the steel doors are the same. 1800 multiplied by 2260 millimeters. Also a count. Width, same again, 1.8, and height 2.26. So very happy with that now in terms of how that's worked out. I think I'm not very happy, but happy enough. Purple, and click insert. So there we have our doors and windows. So starting with the steel doors, why not measure them off the elevations because they're open here? I could measure them off the plans. Usually most of the things you do measure is off the plans in on-screen measurement, but one thing you can certainly do here is measure off the elevations. So what's that? The steel doors, there's one, doesn't matter where I register them, two, and then there's a third right there. So there's my steel doors. And my glazed doors, there we go. It's that one there. Click, just register my count in the middle. So we got the 1385 by 1500. I believe that's the smaller ones on the bottom here. It's the 1575 minus the 75. Yep, 1, 2 on that elevation, and then 2 on this elevation. Okay, that counts those ones. Then the next one is the upper ones on the upper floor, or the first floor, those window sizes, and then the last one is that. So in terms of external wall completions, I can click the folder, external wall completions, just to make sure everything's measured. It is. I've got a color count everywhere I need it, and I believe that is it. Now what we're going to do is just do one last thing, because that is our measurement. We will use those measurements in our workbook next week. But for the moment, that's all I need to do. And I'm going to change the name of this to Properties in the File tab, and just put in 05D, and then Windows and Doors. That's pretty much what it is. Windows and Doors, and click Update. So that is, I suppose, my next tutorial. It's 20 odd minutes, so quick enough one, and we'll pick up where we left off on that next week. Thanks very much.